Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, ladies and gentlemen. I know everyone is familiar with the background to this matter, so I'll cut right to the chase. As the mayor and Mr. Coppola said, it's fair to say that your council members and your mayor heard you. It was obvious at the September 9th meeting of the council that there was still a great deal of concern with the settlement terms that were on the table and being proposed at that point. We went back and continued to negotiate intensively with Madany and to meet repeatedly and at great length with your council members, who should be commended for the hard work and the good faith, conscientious effort they've put into this matter. We explored the offer that was made by Madany at the last meeting of a temporary moratorium on construction while they pursued a different property, and the council wasn't able to get comfortable with that concept under the terms to the extent that we were able to work on them without Madany, so that option was discarded. And literally at the last minute, as he said, and thanks in large part to the diligence and very hard work of your corporation counsel, Mario Coppola, and the lawyers for Madany, late last evening, an agreement was reached on a different alternative that's laid out in the settlement agreement. We now have the final language that hopefully you've all gotten a copy of if you wanted to see it, and if you haven't, there's some more up here on the front of the stage. In a nutshell, the agreement now provides for the city to purchase the Filler Street property from Madany and to compensate Madany and to help Madany to find another property on which it will build and operate a mosque. And so, for everyone's benefit, the terms that were formerly in the last draft of the agreement that the council had reviewed, that referred to the size and dimensions of the mosque, the issuance of necessary permits, terms and conditions for use of the mosque, traffic calming measures to be implemented by the city, payment to Stonegate Condo for a security gate, all of those provisions have been deleted from the agreement, and it now provides three key provisions that are under Section 2, Settlement Terms and Conditions. The first is settlement payments of $307,500 to Madany for its out-of-pocket litigation costs, and as was discussed previously, that's to be reimbursed to the city by its insurance carrier. A second payment to Madany, well, I should also say that payment is to be made within 30 days of the consent order being finalized. The second payment of $925,000 by the city to Madany is required to be made on or before July 3rd, 2015, so it can be made in the next fiscal year. The second key provision is the sale of the property to the city. We have an appraisal of the Filler Street property having a current fair market value of $585,000. Our appraiser, Peter Vimini, was kind enough to join us this evening if anybody on the council has questions for him. So we based the sale of the property at $585,000 on that appraisal. And the city will designate the closing date, but it is to occur by no later than, again, July 3rd, 2015. However, we agreed that if Madany has an opportunity to purchase another property sooner than that, they can tell the city, and the city will accelerate the closing date so that those funds are available to Madany to purchase that other property. And the third essential term of the agreement now is that the city will work in good faith and provide assistance to Madany for at least 3 years to locate an acceptable alternative property. And we specify that the following city officials will work with Madany and assist it to do so: the Director of Economic Development, the Director of the Norwalk Redevelopment Agency, Director of Planning and Zoning, Corporation Counsel, and the Mayor. And then if Madany does locate another property it wants to pursue, the city is agreeing to reimburse Madany for its development costs, since it's already had one round of incurring those costs. So for things like engineering or architects, legal, traffic calming, landscaping, all the normal things they may have to do to develop another property, the city has agreed to reimburse Madany for up to $215,000 for those costs as they are incurred and proof of them is presented. The rest of the agreement is fairly standard settlement agreement language that's been in there all along. Dismissal of the litigation, everybody in the litigation giving each other a release of any and all claims, that sort of thing. So there isn't anything really, I don't think, controversial or terribly interesting in those. So I won't go over them in detail, but everybody has a copy of the agreement. I'm happy to answer questions on it. That's a summary of the terms, but now for some further reflections, Professor Marcy Hamilton.
Okay, so hi everybody. Norwalk is a very diverse community. I think it may be the most diverse community I've worked with across the United States at this point, and you are all dealing with a difficult issue. Basically, and this is an issue that comes up in communities everywhere, where you have a project that's not quite right for the lot. The question is, what do you do in that situation? Normally, you would negotiate it out under normal land use procedures. When the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act enters the door and you've got federal litigation, it's just a lot more complicated. So, in the end, there are two ways to go with our LUPA. And one is to challenge its constitutionality, and the other one is to find a rational settlement. And the rational settlement is what's been achieved here. And essentially what's happening and what's good for everybody is that Madany and Norwalk are now working as a unified pair to find the better location together. Part of the agreement that I think actually is the most important is the city's pledge and Madany's pledge to work together to find an appropriate place in Norwalk. So this is an agreement that is welcoming this mosque to Norwalk, but is essentially saying that their current location is not the right one, but also that everybody should be involved in welcoming them, and everybody should be a good citizen as opposed to needing to litigate. So in the end, I think this is a very good result for Norwalk, and it's been an honor to work with everybody involved.